Yeah, so this will be, hopefully the majority of the talk will be quite personal. And it's my personal perspective, my personal experience, thoughts about going forth renunciation. And what I want to do is I want to start with two memories, okay? So the first one was about 6 months ago in Spain while I was at a retreat centre called Gukiloka. So at Gukiloka I was ordained, and it's a retreat centre in the beautiful Spanish mountains, and it's in an incredibly beautiful place. And I was there for 4 months in retreat conditions, ideal conditions. And it was the happiest, most satisfying time of my life. So a deep sense of practice, of connection with the community of my brothers that I was there with 20 other people, 16 of whom were also getting ordained. And after many weeks of weeks and months of intense practice, living together, studying together, meditating together, and a great simplicity of life, this momentum was built up. And a sense of calm, beauty, appreciation, connectedness. My mind was so refined, suppled, relaxed, balanced, sharp. It was blissful, really blissful. So on a very hot, so Gukiloka gets quite hot in the day in some parts of the year. And one evening I came out of the shrine room. And I was standing in the open air, and I could see my other brothers, some of them still in the shrine room, lit by candlelight. And this cool breeze came across the valley, and I was just sort of lifted up into this kind of ecstasy, so the most pleasurable experience I've ever had. Because I realised that what I was doing with my life and what I wanted to do with my life were the same thing. So we're the same thing. So what I was doing and what I wanted to do, they married, they were the same thing. And with that, a deep sense of satisfaction, deep sense of peace, of calm, of stillness. So that's the first memory. 10 years earlier, I was in Spain. Oh, sorry, not in Spain, I was in Greece. In Kavos, which is a seaside village on the island of Corfu. So I looked up what Wikipedia had to say about Kavos. It is a lively resort, heavily devoted to tourism, popular with young holiday makers from Britain. So this is what I was up to 10 years earlier. So probably around the same time in the summer, 10 years earlier, I woke up on a sun lounger on the beach in Kavos with absolutely no idea where I was, what had happened the previous night, where my friends were, where my hotel was. A cracking hangover, mind like cement, mouth really dry, aching all over, that sort of slow creeping feeling of despair and shame. And as I sat up and tried to light a soggy cigarette from my pocket with a broken lighter, I wondered, was this really a good way to have a good time? Was this really pleasurable? Was this what it was about? So I definitely don't want to glamorise this. So I look back and it's quite, it feels a bit tragic. So I don't want to give you the impression that I was particularly reckless or a tearaway, because I wasn't. I just hadn't sort of got a grip on what I really wanted. And I think a lot of it was just frustrated longing. It was like long for something more and didn't know where to put it. So renunciation for me has taken the form of renouncing short-term pleasures for deeper satisfaction. That's the form that renunciation's taken for me. So what does bring deeper satisfaction? And I think that question is linked to the question of what do I really want? What do I actually really want? What do I really value? What do I want to give my life to? And luckily I have my name to remind me. So Aryadasa, so as Pranyakhetu mentioned, Arya means noble or holy, and there's two aspects of this. I see. So one aspect is like skillful action, so volition, ethics, so action coming out of kindness, contentment and wisdom. And the other aspect is a kind of transcendental or beyond, the thing that's quite hard to talk about but you can get a texture of. I feel like I really had a texture of that this weekend actually. So skillful action and transcendental, symbolised by the three jewels. And as Kusala Devi was saying, beyond doesn't mean you don't have to go anywhere to go beyond, if you see what I mean. So yeah, there's much more I've been discovering, and there is much more higher states of being, much more higher states of being. So that memory at Gukyaloka just gave me a taste. And in response to what is noble, I want to serve it. So that's my just natural response. What I value, I want to give my life to it, I want to serve it. And I want to give my life to something that's more important than me. That feels extremely, extremely important. It has to be more important than me. I need more than just me. So this retreat is called the Big One, but it's part of a much greater whole. So as you might have, hopefully you've had that experience of being here at Adhisthana, that this retreat is part of something much, much bigger, much greater. So I was here at the rededication of this shrine room, and each one of these Buddhas had been sent here from different parts of the world, different Trirakta groups and communities from all around the world. And 4 people in the ritual of the rededication, 4 people from different parts of the world placed these Buddhas in their houses, in their windows. So it gives a sense that that it's much bigger. This is much bigger than the Big One. Yeah, so I really love this Buddhist order, and my name is an aspiration. So I realise that service isn't measured in years, it's measured in decades. So my name's an aspiration, something that I want to live up to. So to serve what is noble, that's what I find truly satisfying. That's what I've gone forth to. And if I do that at the end of my life, if I can say that I've served something noble, I will have no regrets. So quickly, I'd just like to give a few examples of what this has looked like in my life. So I want to look at the area of Sangha, of how I live, lifestyle, and of the kind of work that I do. So commitment to the Sangha, this is what it's actually looked like. So committing particularly to the Sheffield Sangha for the foreseeable future, so making a decision to commit to a certain group of people in a certain situation just freed up lots of energy. And part of service is just going to things, so turning up to things is a service to the Sangha, being a part of the events and what's going on in your local Sangha is a part of creating it, of servicing it. So I'm going to be playing an ugly sister in this year's panto, Buddhist themed panto, so watch out for that on YouTube. So more generally, this takes the form of I try and keep close to people who I find inspiring. So keep close to people who are on fire with the Dharma. I want some of their heat, so I keep close to them and try and add to that fire. And I'm receptive to the way that people live their life, and I allow other people's lives to influence my own. I live in a men's community, so I've lived in a men's community for 3 years, and it's an incredibly precious experience because what unites us is shared ideals that are often just too deep for words, but that's why we're all together. So I really value spiritual friendship, and I was wondering what is the main difference between friendship and spiritual friendship. And For me, spiritual friendship is standing shoulder to shoulder facing the Buddha. I think that's an image that encapsulates spiritual friendship for me. So as we've all done this weekend, we've all sat together shoulder to shoulder and faced the Buddha. And I've a really close spiritual friend called Maitrevasin, who I was ordained with. And on the surface of it, we don't have many things in common in a worldly sense, but what we do have in common is what matters to us most. So there's just a sense of absolute trust there, and I really feel this when I'm making an offering side by side with Maitrevasin, and I'm sure you felt the same. If you've made an offering with a really good spiritual friend, it's like your friendship is more than each other. It's more than face to face. It's shoulder to shoulder. I work with other Buddhists, so I work in a right livelihood, and being careful about my financial commitments and keeping my life quite simple, it means I have more of a choice about how I serve, so I'm less confined by financial need. For the last 3 or 4 years, I've been working for a school project run by the Buddhist Centre, and it basically I host school children to the Buddhist Centre and tell them about Buddhism and meditation as part of their RE, and go into schools as well. So I do that as part of a team, and we've probably, since I've been there, we've probably seen over 10,000 children. So all the way from 4 years old all up to university students. And it's a really great thing to do. So if you are in a position to do that, I encourage you to get involved with projects that are already happening, or start something like that. Because part of service for me is acting as a fourth sight. So I don't think we realise that how much of a fourth sight, the sight of a holy, a more spiritual path we can convey to other people, particularly children. And it gives, what it's given me is a chance to express my principles, and most children are pretty receptive. Obviously some aren't, but that's also a really good thing. So 13 years old seemed to be a particularly tricky age for, there was one group of this particular age, and I was telling them about Buddhism meditation. They were there. They had to be there as part of their RE, and it was a little bit like pulling teeth. It was pretty grim, and I was teaching them about. I led them through a meditation style exercise, and I had my eyes closed, and I thought, they're all being so quiet. This is really good. And then I opened my eyes, and they were just all staring at me like I was completely mad. And that was a lesson in itself, because I'd expressed my values, what's most important to me, and it doesn't have to be shared by everyone for it to still be true. So it doesn't matter what. That applies, I think, to all working situations, all situations. If you stand behind your values, you will be a fourth sight, and because other people have different values, it will sort of reflect back on, it will cause a reflection of, well, what do you really think? What do you really believe? And I think a great strength comes from having principles that are, and sticking by them, even if they aren't shared by other people. So just to finish, so these supportive conditions have helped me refine lower pleasures to higher satisfaction. So my life is much more satisfying than it was 10 years ago. So it's a little bit like moving from lower pleasures, which always felt a little bit to me like holding craving at bay, but just setting up more craving further ahead in the future. So moving from alcohol, drugs, neurotic sexual craving to things that are much more satisfying. So art, poetry, loving relationships, friendships grounded in the precepts. appreciation of beauty and gratitude. So that is what renunciation has looked like for me, going forth from something lower to something higher. So maybe the final thing is, I want to say, is just maybe, an invitation to just ask yourself, what do you really want? What do you really find satisfying? And renounce everything less. So don't have a good future behind you. Life is short and there is only time for the best.